Alright guys, so based on my really popular How to Turbo Your Honda over the weekend video, I decided to go ahead and do a new style of How to Turbo over the weekend. This one's for the Camaro that we're building for the CNC Customs page. It's pretty much the 98 to 02 body style Camaro and Firebird. And this video is going to be how to turbo your Camaro or Firebird LS1 motor over the weekend. And we're going to start up here now with Cody showing you the first step.
Okay, so what I'm doing is I'm working on getting the bumper off, and what we found out, which in most cases this is the fact, that you got to take in the wheel well in here, the liner, and we're gonna have a bolt in the back here towards the front of the car. We're gonna have a bolt in the back behind, like towards the back of the car, and then there's gonna be some little pop pins, or that one has an actual screwdriver screwdriver. Use a Phillips head to get that one out. Some little things here and there to hold it in to get the wheel shield out, and then I'll just go ahead and show you the top here. And then you're going to need to take all these out, which just looks just like little pop pins, so those won't be that hard to get out. And then when we get the wheel shields off, we're going to have to go in there and see what kind of bolts and stuff we have to get off to get the bumper to come off. Pick back up with that.
Okay guys, so one of the next steps to do while Cody's moving stuff out of our way is, if you remember, we just recently did how to convert to the truck alternator in one of our tech episodes. So this is not the LS1 alternator anymore. So to remove it's going to be simple. Battery cable off the back, the plug that plugs into the side of it, and 3 bolts. Take the 3 bolts off, and of course undo the serpentine belt at the top, and you just wiggle her right out and down. Piece of cake. So that's my next step to get that out of the way. I'll pick up with that.
Okay, so we found out we don't need to take the wheel shield out. We just need to take a few bolts off down here, which were all in here. And then this part can slide back. I'm going to use the light here and show you up in here. And then what you're going to want to do is those 3 bolts right there all in a row. Take those off, and that'll allow this side of the bumper to come off pretty easily. And then you're also going to have to remember to undo the cables to the turn signal up there. Alright, and you're just going to have to do that with both sides, and then the bumper will be off for you.
Okay, so now I have the alternator off, and the wire that goes to the back of the alternator needs to be ran up to the top, up on the passenger side top, and luckily it's already pretty much long enough. You just got to cut all the zip ties and take the loom off that stops it from joins it in with other wires, and then we could undo it all the way across here. Hard to see, I know, but you see that light, Cody? You can see that it's in a loom there the whole way across. Just undo it, and we should be able to feed it right up there to where we're going. We're actually going right up there to where you see that other spring-loaded tensioner on the top. That's where the alternator will be moved to. So I'm going to do that next. Cody's over here working on getting the bumper off. There's some 3 nuts right along the row there.
10mm if you need the size.
10mm. And that'll have that side of the bumper undone. Okay guys, so we got the alternator removed. I've undone that alternator wire through the loom. You see there's plenty here. I'll tuck it out of the way once we figure out where we want it. Next, I'm going to go ahead and remove this cold air intake system. We'll probably end up reselling this on eBay or something for somebody. So since the car's up still pretty high in the air for Cody to finish what he's doing, I just kind of nitpick here at things. So I'm going to take off this cold air intake next. And we're going speed density, so we won't need the mass airflow meter. So that'll stay right here all in one piece. And we'll pop that off and pick up after that. Guys, so here's the 3 that you have to deal with along the side of your bumper. And then there's also one right here, which you go straight in through here with. You know, it's in just like this, and it runs right into that. So that's it for this side. We got those little push pins along the bottom of those 3 push pins that were up in here. Those are out. Cody's doing the same thing to the other side. We got these push pins out, and the bumper cover, these turning signals have 2 bulbs in them that both just twist and pop out. You don't have to actually unplug the plugs off the bulbs. You just twist the whole bulb socket out of the assembly. And I'll show you that once we get back in here. Kind of laying down here now, see? 1 bulb, and then there's a second one up there. A smaller one right here, marker bulb. So the fog lights, they stay put inside there. They don't come off with. So once Cody has the inner cover back out of our way, like I did on this side, I found it easiest just to undo the cover where it's fastened up in here, and then just fold it back behind the brake caliper out of the way. Give you all the space you need. Okay, so we'll pick up with the bumper cover off, and we'll lower the car down so we start removing some stuff up top. I think next what we'll do is start taking off the AC system. We should be taking the exhaust manifolds off, but they're really hard to get to. So the more stuff that's not in our way, the better. And I think having the AC system off is going to help a little bit with that. Okay guys, so the bumper cover's off. And now we got this big hunk of styrofoam in the way of a nice place to put our intercooler. So this has these big push pins that are just larger than regulars. One here, one here, one here, and one here. What I've done is just kind of stuck a hook behind it, like a hook tool. And give it a hard yank. Like this. Of course, now I'm on camera. It won't work. There we go. And it pulls it apart. See, big push pin sort of thing. Here, Cody, save these. We're not putting them back in here, but they'll be handy for something. I think there might even be one in here. Yeah, there's 3 of them. Okay, so that's it. We pull these push pins out, get the styrofoam out of the way, and we'll pick up the video with what we do next under the hood. Okay guys, so we decided to go ahead and take out the AC system next. Make up some more space. So it's what Cody's doing over here. We went ahead and drained the AC system the proper way, so that there was no contamination in here of the Freon. Another way of doing it is just unhooking it outside where you can't breathe it in. So we're taking out all the components. We're going to get out the condenser, the evaporator, the accumulator, everything taken out. Then we're taking the compressor off itself. Once we have all the AC system out, that'll open up a lot of space, and we'll move on to the next step.
Alright, we're in the process of taking off all of the AC things. As you can see, what we had taken off so far, starting to clear up nice. Craig's down there taking off the AC compressor, and that's pretty much where we're at for now. Pick back up with some more footage in a little bit as things progress.
Okay, so we took off the AC compressor. There's a bracket left on the block I'll show you. We got the condenser out. You take off the cooler fans. Stock cooler fans come off. It's possible that you may end up having to, we haven't got that far yet, we'll see how it is. You may end up having to put some pusher fans on the front. I don't know if you can actually just turn them fans around and fit them down in there, but if they don't, you can just get some slimline fans from your local parts store or Summit or Jegs, wire them in, put some pusher fans on. That gives you a lot of space down there. I'm not sure if we'll be able to fit the stock ones back in or not. But underneath, as you see, there's a bracket down here yet. That has to come off. That was for the AC. And once that's off, then we're all free and clear. We can start working on taking off the exhaust manifold on this side. So we'll pick up with that procedure in a minute. Okay, so the next step now, what we're doing is we're taking off this old bracket here. It's a Torx head that detaches it from the frame down there. And then we're going to start removing this EGR stuff that's in our way, because we're not going to run the EGR either. So the more stuff we get out of the way before we start tackling these manifolds, the better it'll be on our hands and fingers and arms. So we're going to pick up with this bracket here removed, and us taking off the EGR piping, and then we'll go from there. Alright, so now that we have the EGR stuff out of the way and everything else that was here, you can see the manifold pretty easy. So now we got to go through and take these 10mm bolts out all the way across. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Looks like there's 6 of them. And may or may not have to pull the spark plug wires off. Depending on how you want to do it. To get the manifolds off, you should at least pull the spark plug wires off the spark plugs. I'm taking them off here too, just to get more stuff out of my way so I can see better. So we'll pick up with this manifold hopefully off, and one step closer.
Alright. Now, what we're doing is we got to take off this bolt and take the dipstick out of the engine there. Got this bolt right at my fingertip. Pull that out. Then you're gonna take the dipstick off, because you have to do that in order.
The dipstick slips into the block.
The dipstick slips into the block.
Yep. So once you undo that bolt, we can slide it up out.
Alright.
Sometimes they're sticky. Go ahead, let's start taking that bolt out. Got the manifold off. Now we can get to the spark plugs real easy. When you go turbo, you have to run a 7 spark plug. So 7 range. So we're going to be going with the NGK 7s. And I'll get you the exact part number and model number then. I believe they're BKR7EF or something along those lines. Been a while since I bought a set. So that's what we're doing now. And then over on this side, I'm starting to move the wiring harness out of the way. I'm unhooking the fuel lines here just to kind of clear space so I can get down here to these manifold bolts and undo these spark plug boots and wires. This is, if your car has ABS, this is kind of in your way too, but you can't really do much about that. So that's what I'm doing now, working on getting these spark plug wires off, and I'll take these manifold bolts out. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, as you see, once you have the manifolds out, there's actually quite a bit of room in there. Once you move all this stuff out of the way. Cody's actually in the process now of taking the spark plugs out. We've got this manifold off. We went ahead and undid the fuel line at the quick release. Just kind of tucked it up in here behind the brake lines for now, so it's up and out of our way. Our wires out. We have to take the intake manifold off. You can go ahead and do the injector swap without doing that, but I'm going to pull the intake manifold off because looks like there's a valve cover gasket leak at the back, and I just want to check everything back there and see how it looks. So we're just going to go ahead and pull it off. It's easy to take it all off in one piece once you undo all the wires. And we'll go from there, picking up with probably starting the mock-up soon. We went ahead and ordered the spark plugs and spark plug wires. These manifolds make it really tricky to go ahead and use stock spark plug wires on them, because sometimes you need longer. So I like to use the MSD ones. They let you custom cut them to a custom length. It's the MSD LS Universal set. MSD-32073 is the part number through Summit. And it comes with like extra long pieces of wire with one end attached already. And then you cut them to length in a little crimp tool, and you can make your own length wire. So you can actually make them really long to get away from everything. And if you want to, you can slip the little fire sleeves over top of them too. So yeah, that's what we're going to do. We're going to wait. We'll have the spark plugs and wires here tomorrow. But meanwhile, today we're going to go ahead and start mocking up this turbo kit. We don't even need to mess with the intake manifold for all that. Just get all the hard piping done. See what we're going to do about the fan situation. For the spark plugs, you're going to want to run stock number 3346. They're BR7EFs. That's a 7 heat range. Be good for the compression and boost we're going to run in horsepower level. So we'll pick up with some more action here in a bit. Okay, so Cody and I have done is we've gone ahead and disconnected the wiring harness from all the points on the intake manifold. And we're also doing the EGR delete on this, being as turbo. So we won't need the EGR system, which clears up some space and some room and cleans up a little bit. In other words, we got like, that stuff out of there. And then there's also an air pump right here that, is part of the EGR system. We're going to go ahead and get rid of that, clean up a little space. So he has 2 more bolts to take off, and then we should be able to start moving the intake forward. On the back of the intake is going to be a map sensor connection and also the hose for the power brakes. So you got to get back in there and disconnect those. And I believe there's another plug back there too, the blue one down in there.
All right.
So once we have those disconnected, we'll show you how it looks. Guys, so got the intake manifold off. On the back of the intake manifold, you're going to work on a couple items. One of the items that you're going to have to disconnect when you reach behind it will be this. This will be actually on the back of the manifold. Goes to that blue plug right there. That's your knock sensors. The other thing you're going to have to disconnect will be this plug here to your map sensor. This vacuum line will come off as well. And that went over to the EGR solenoid, which we're not going to use, so we'll probably end up plugging this and deleting that. The other one appears to go probably to the controls inside the car for the heating, so that one still has to get some vacuum. The other thing is right here. This was just kind of like a crossover tube on the back for sharing exhaust gases between the two ports on the back of the valve covers. Those will just get plugged. We're not going to worry about them doing that anymore. And then the biggest thing is right here. It's the vacuum line for your power brakes. That'll have a little clamp that needs to be loosened and slid back. What we did was we lifted it up, moved it forward just a little bit so we could get more space to reach in. Then once we had everything on hook, we just lifted it out. He's going around now and cleaning up everything carefully to not let anything fall down inside the heads. And once that's all cleaned up, we'll just lay some stuff over there so nothing can fall in. Now we're waiting on some stuff, our spark plug wires and our spark plugs and a couple little things that don't come in the kit. So next step, what we're going to do is once he has that done and covered up, we're going to go ahead and start mocking up the piping and see how she fits. We'll pick up with that. Okay everybody, so we got this side's turbo manifold on the JS Racing Products 98 to 02 Camaro and Firebird LS kit. The trick to getting this side on is simply to take this valve cover off and weasel it down in from the top. Once it's weaseled in down from the top, you can use your gaskets. I like to use the old OEM gaskets over again, but they do come with a new gasket if you want. And then what Cody had to do down here was simply use a pry bar, bend the power steering lines back slightly to the V-bands line up perfectly, and now he's eyeballing the clearance, and looks good. So go ahead, set that down, and now we'll stick the manifold on the other side, which we've already trial fitted. That one just weasels in right from the top as well. You don't have to take the valve cover off. Once we have both manifolds on and tightened down, and for now we're only sticking a couple screws in, a couple bolts in, because we're not sure how tricky it's going to be to do the spark plugs yet and the spark plug wires. So in case we want to move them or take them off to do any of that later, we're just putting a few bolts in. But we do have the gaskets in there because the gaskets do also change the spacing quite a bit. So next step will be for me and Cody to feed in the other manifold over here, put a couple bolts in with the gasket, tighten it down, and then we will hook up the crossover pipe with built-in T4 flange, as you see on the floor, and that gets connected with V-bands. Once that's V-banded on, we're only one step away from actually fastening the turbo down to it. So we'll pick up with that. Okay guys, we're picking up with this manifold on. Like we said, we weaseled in from this side, has good clearance around everything, and we ran a couple bolts in with the gaskets. There's a light, and you see in there, it fits in there real well. It's good quality fit. Okay, so now me and Cody are going to go ahead and put the crossover pipe on and V-band it fast, and we'll pick up with how that looks. Alright guys, so we've got the manifolds mocked on, crossover pipe, and now we also have the turbo mounted. And she's not focusing very well. There she is. Much better view from underneath. Let's go underneath and take a look. There you go. You can see how she fits underneath there. Everything fits wonderful. It clears past everything. We had to use a little bit of a pry bar here to make some clearance between the power steering lines and the exhaust pipe. Turbo goes on just like this. Remember, you always want to have your oil feed or your oil drain facing straight down. So you have to loosen these perimeter bolts on the turbo. There'll be perimeter bolts all the way around on both sides. On this side there's these ones. On this side there's this one. They're 1/2 inch. And then that allows you to clock. See how I can clock this? So I don't have them tighten back down. That allows you to set the turbo in the way it needs to go, which is drain facing straight down, this facing straight down, and of course the turbo angled for the flange here, the compressor or the turbine housing. So now we'll tighten down all those bolts now that the turbo's in the correct configuration, and the next step will be to actually fasten down the turbo to the T4 flange here permanently and start preparing to run our oil drain line and our oil feed line. And we'll pick up with that. Okay guys, a little update here on some step-by-step. One of the pipes that you're going to have a problem getting in easy is part of your downpipe for the turbo. And
hold on a second here.
What we figured out to do is, to make it the easiest, is go ahead and, since we only had 2 bolts holding this manifold in, one at the back, one at the front, we just took the one out the front and pivoted up kind of like a hinge, and that left us slide this pipe in then from back here by the starter up in. And then we will be able to now arrange this in the way that's needed to be arranged for the turbo's cross pipe. So we'll go ahead and hook up the turbo's cross pipe again and show you that connected now. Okay guys, once you have that piece in there like we told you about, you can go ahead and put back on your, I was just thinking zoom out a little bit more, put back on this crossover tube. We have the turbo just kind of sitting on there, bolted down loosely right now, and that piece that we wedged in between the motor and everything gets V-banded here and here to the to this elbow piece with the O2 bung facing down like this. And this fits all right in between the frame there, and it'll come out back here by the starter, above the starter actually. Let's see if I can show you here. You see that? Comes out there above the starter. Plenty of room to put the starter in and bolt the starter in. Then there's one last exhaust piece here on the ground that once we get the rest of this all bolted in, that'll end up running the exhaust back here like this. What we're going to try to do is actually get some 3-inch piping then and merge it in. We're going to put the stock Flowmaster system back on, the aftermarket Flowmaster system, that's 3-inch, and we're going to try to merge this right into it, so it'll come right off the back with the 3-inch Flowmaster system, just like it did when we originally bought the car. So this is the mock-up. As you can see, we're going to have to put some thin pusher fans on the front. There's no way we're going to be able to put a fan in between here. So we could probably put a small one over on this side, but we might as well just put some pushers on the front and wire them in, and we'll pick up with a how-to on how to do that as well. So this is how to turbo your Camaro over the weekend with a JS Racing Products turbo kit. And so far it's going on like a dream. You know, as good as it can be expected in such a tight area. You know, this is a very well put together kit, very well thought out, and everything's just fitting in there really, really good. Okay guys, we're back here again working on Project Blackhawk, installing its turbo kit. So the spark plugs have come. Cody's laying out there now. Show them what they are.
Here we go.
Some NGK. This is the numbers you want. I use these in all my turbo LS motors. So Cody's going to go ahead and stick the spark plugs in. And we also had to buy the MSD make your own wires because the stock wires just aren't going to fit correctly. So MSD makes this nice setup here for you can see the part number and everything. Those will be really long and there won't be any ends on them, and there's a tool in there to put the ends on, so you cut them to length, make your own custom wires, and of course I got the sleeving here to help protect them if they get near the exhaust. If there's a spot where this is just a thin reflector style sheathing that doesn't have a whole lot of insulation to it, if we run into an area where the wire may actually have to touch or lay on the header, we're going to want to run a more protective sleeve, which over here in my drawer of miscellaneous wires I have a couple. These are double thick and they work really well for protecting wires against header heat. So while he sticks the spark plugs in, I'm going to go ahead and fasten down the turbo's hot side permanently once and for all, and get working on actually plumbing the turbo's feed and drain. Now, remember when I told you about this kit being 98% or so bolt on? Here's the tidbit where there will be a little bit of effort on your end. The feed line is pretty straightforward. The feed line that comes with our kits for LS motors is always the same one. It'll be this line here, okay? There's a little baggie here with some fittings in it. Right in here. Okay, so I'll show you what to do with all these, but basically what we're going to do is right above the oil filter on an LS motors, on the 4.8, 5.3, 5.7, etc., is a block-off plate right above the oil filter. On the 6 liters, it's actually where they tie in the oil cooling system. On those, you do a little different procedure, but I can't get in there and show you right now, I don't think. Let's see. Right above the oil filter is that block-off plate. It's held in with 2 little bolts. I believe they're 8 or 10 millimeter. I think they're 10. We're going to end up taking that off and drilling and tapping that to receive a piece out of there, which will let that braided hose screw directly onto it. It's an AN fitting adapter. That will then run up to the top of the turbo, and I'll show you all that as we go. And that's the fill line. The fill line is straightforward, bolt on, just some drilling and tapping. The drain line is where you're going to have to get creative. And I'm trying to find the piece, so that's why I'm spinning around here. I don't see it. Where is it? We're not going to use it, that's the point. The point is, while we do include a small piece of drain line, which I don't see for the life of me, oh, it's underneath there with Cody, a small piece of braided stainless line. That's actually a longer piece I had here at the shop. Where's the short piece?
Down here.
It's not down there? Okay guys, well, unprepared for that part. There's a short piece of this stuff here that comes with the kit. It's usually just tossed in because it's not going to really be long enough. Because on the LS motors, Cody, will you move your knees to the sides so I can show them here? On the LS motors, we're going to end up having to go into the oil pan. Now the problem is, on an LS1, not so much the truck motors, the front of the pan, which I'm trying to show you in there with this lighting sucks balls, it doesn't really give you enough of a lip to thread a fitting into. And you know, you always have to run downhill when it comes to your drain. Your drain can't have any kinks or bends or uphills to it. It has to be a free-flowing gravity drain situation. So that's why we have it turned. I don't have it fastened yet, but you can see how I have the CHRA, or the center section there where the orange plug is, turned slightly back at an angle. That will allow me to go down through here, back over top the frame rail, and I'm going to end up drilling and tapping into the side of the oil pan back in here somewhere. And of course I'll show you that in more detail once I do it. As long as the line is running downhill, get off from underneath there. Ugh. For that, I like to use what's called Parker push lock line. The turbo will usually come with a fitting something like this for the bottom of it, which you can slide the line over and put a clamp on. It's a barb fitting. And then what I do is I purchase one of these. Now this doesn't have the right end. I do have the right one coming to match the same diameter here for the inner hose. But I can use this one for now for mock-up, just to get the placement right. Because this thread will be the same. And then you need to buy or borrow a 1/2 inch by 14 NPT tap. And then use the corresponding 11/16 drill bit. And we'll drill and tap the pan. Now, what does come with the kit, if you have the engine out, or you can get the oil pan off, is a fitting that I wish I'd been more prepared before I fired this video up, so I can show you. It's a bulkhead fitting, and we're not using it, so that's probably why it's just tossed away somewhere here. Basically, it allows you to drill a hole in the pan, and there's washers on either side of the bulkhead fitting. You put a piece on the inside of the pan, thread the piece on the outside, it smushes tight, and it gives you a non-welding situation, a non-welding scenario, so you don't actually have to weld the pan. Again, we can't get the pan off because you know, this engine's already in the car. If your engine was out of the car when you started this adventure, or you plan on having it out prior to doing this, then yeah, then that fitting would work. And you could probably get that one up front where it's a lip. But where the little lip is on the oil pan. But since we're doing the bigger threaded one, we have to go around to the side. So I've rambled long enough. I just want to make sure I get this point through. 98% bolt-on kit will require a little bit of working on your part here. So what we're going to have to do is go have to put this on, install this in the side of the pan, measure it, and then go down to our local our machine shop that we have in the area called Mapco. They actually sell Parker push lock hydraulic line, and I love using that stuff. It's very strong and takes the heat and everything. So we'll pick up with some of those scenarios here in a moment. Okay guys, a little short update here. Once you have the turbo clocked, remember it's 3 sections here, exhaust, the center, and the compressor. You can clock them individual by loosening up all these parameter bolts. Once you have it set on the motor, kind of mocked into the position you want, you can snug 1 or 2 to hold it there to take it back off. Bring it out and just tighten them all down. Remember, this is aluminum, it will strip, but snug it good. This is not going to strip too easy, that's cast. So I got that all set up in about the position we want it to be. Now we're going to go ahead and install the feed sandwich adapter, which will be this gasket on here, and the sandwich feed adapter, and that gets bolted down with these included Allen bolts. So I usually put a little silicone on these, so I'll get a little silicone out, put a little bit of dab of silicone around that, just a thin film. And then for the exhaust side, or the drain side, we pretty much do the same thing. This will go on with a gasket, and looks like just enough room between there will be there to slip the hose over. It's a really tight fit. Alright, so I'll pick up with that done. Okay guys, so when you put headers on, sometimes you can't get to the spark plugs right, or very easily. Cody wanted to pull the headers back off to put the spark plugs in, which is an option because we only have them held on by 2 bolts currently. But over the years I've learned other ways of doing it. Here's a spark plug socket that's cut down. You can slide it over the spark plug and then take like a ratchet wrench, or the open end of a wrench, and still get her tightened down. These are all little ways of trying to get around when you have tight areas. So we're going to try to put all these spark plugs in without taking the headers back off. And if we can succeed, it'll be with your traditional tools, wrenches that fit the spark plugs themselves, socket that's cut down to give you slide over. The tip of the spark plug sticks out here a little bit, but you just take your box wrench or your ratchet wrench and go right on there. Okay, so let's we'll let you know how we make out with that. All right, Cody, tell them where we're at so far and what we've done.
So far we got all our spark plugs in and got our manifolds tightened down. Getting ready to move down into the other part.
That's fancy talk for the cross pipe down there, which is done and tightened on. So let's just recap for these guys and show them a couple things here about this kit. Spark plugs, they are probably a 7 out of 10 on difficulty to get in with these manifolds in place. Wouldn't be such a big deal if we didn't have the dump tube or the downpipe already ran in between the frame there. Remember we showed you in an earlier episode how we took out the front bolt here, hinged this up, and we fed that dump tube through so it was in a while. Well, with that in place, go under here to show you. Alright, so with this guy here in place, the downpipe that goes through between the frame makes it a little difficult to get underneath the spark plugs. This side was pretty much cake. You can get the back 2 from underneath here really easy, using that cut down socket and a wrench, and the front 2 from up top really easy. So now what we're at is, let's take this a little bit close here. We're going to put the this is the cross pipes all fastened, so now we're going to mount the turbo. You want to just pay attention when you're doing this that you run all your lines away from heat. We're going to end up having to zip tie this line here back and away away from the metal of the pipe. I also noticed that the power steering cooler, which happens to run through a metal pipe on the upper rad hose, may need both clamps loosened and have it clocked slightly because these hoses want to rest right on the turbo. So we're going to look at doing that too. So our next step now, Cody, is to go ahead and mount the turbo. Well, we'll get those sandwich adapters fastened to it for the oil feed and drain. We'll mount it, and then we'll go ahead and we'll drill this. We'll take this block off plate off. We'll show them how to drill and tap it for the oil feed. And we'll have the turbo plumbed then and be ready to go.
Let's go.
Okay, guys. So just a small update again. Cody's down there taking that block off plate on. I just wanted to show you how it looks. Turbo is mounted and in its place. And even though the lighting sort of sucks, you can see her in there. Plenty of space between it and the radiator. We're going to have to order a couple pusher fans. Probably just end up using one big fan. And since there's no AC anymore, there's really no need for 2 fans. We'll just run 1 fan. We'll tie it into the number 1 fan
plug.
So he is pulling off the block off plate right now. Got her off, Cody?
Just about.
Okay. Yeah, and I found that bulk head fitting I was talking to you guys about earlier when I said the one that comes with the kit for the pan. It looks like this, but since it's not an option for us this time because we're not taking the oil pan off the car, and if you're not either, then you're not going to want to use this option either. You'll want to copy me and use the fitting and the brass tap and everything. If you grease the tap up and the drill bit up when you go through the pan, the aluminum will stick right to it. Yep, she'll leak out a little oil.
She's leaking a ton of oil.
It won't be a ton, just what's in that little cavity. Well, there you go. Now you got a mess all over to clean up. All right. Well, while he cleans up that oil mess, I'll show you guys what this is. This is just a block off plate. The gasket apparently stuck to the pan. So I will clean this up a little bit. And then what you do is you drill out this top here. It's just a dead boss. You drill that out and you tap it to 1/8 inch NPT. And once you do that, another shop rag. There you go. And the oil line comes already with a piece already on it. So you'll thread that in with some Teflon tape or some pipe dope on it. And that'll be your feed source. And then we'll run this up to the top of the turbo and we'll pick up from there. Okay guys, so here's the feed line ran. You can see we ran it up through and then between the frame there, little coil because of how long it is, and then of course it's tapped and put into here. I'm fastening this back down as we speak. That'll be our feed. This can't be near anything hot, so if it passes near the exhaust system you need to zip tie it down so it doesn't. In this case here we're pretty far away from anything that's real hot, so I'll just make sure of that by zip tying it in places. You also don't want it to touch on the fan pulley up here or anything.
Yeah, we might have a little trouble with the belt clearance.
So we'll have to, we'll check with the belt clearance once we run the belt on, which we don't have yet. The belt comes with the auto relocation bracket. That was just on back order, so I'm just waiting for that to show up and then we'll be set. So we'll pick up now with showing you then the drain. Okay guys, so we drilled our hole here and it's above the oil line, which is good. Now we're going to thread our fitting in, which like I said, this isn't the right one because we need to go pick up the other one that came in today. But that's going to get threaded in there with some Teflon tape, and that will end up being our it's a little tricky to get started there, but anyway, that'll be our drain. And it'll come over here to the drain on the turbo. I'm going to clock the turbo back a little bit. When it comes to the angle of the feed and drain on a turbo, 12 o'clock and 6 o'clock are the best. In other words, straight up and straight down. You can go at a slight angle when needed, such in this case, but I think I have it at just a little bit too much of an angle. What happens is if it's too much of an angle, oil will lay in the center section instead of draining out as fast as it should and build up, and it can cause premature oil seal failure. So next step's going to be to go get the right fitting here and some hose from the hydraulic store, and then we'll have our drain completely plumbed. Our feed is already plumbed, and we'll pick up then on, I think next we're going to do the spark plug wires, get those out of the way and hooked up. Okay, we just drained the oil out. Even though it was relatively fresh oil, that was just to assure we got the shavings out from when we drilled the hole in the pan. We've got one wire done. Now with these header design, you're going to want to use some header wrap in certain locations and protector sleeves. Like these are the wires you make to your own length. You can run them long if you want to. That's what we're probably going to do for most of them, run them real long and not around. But make sure they don't burn through. That's an absolute must, that they can't be burned through. With any car, but a turbo car is really susceptible to it. So we got the header wrap in there nice, and that's really got that protected good there, wrapped around the manifold and the wire itself. So we're going to go ahead and bang out all 8 wires now, and once we have that done, we'll pick up with the next step. Okay, Cody and I just finished with all the hot side and all the spark plug wires using the custom MSD wires. Half of them just about were able to be cut to just a stock length and ran with very minimal issue. The back one back there, all the way in the back, was stock length. The middle two had to be ran, well the middle two had to be ran extra long and out around the downpipe, and then zip tied back. Just use common sense when running the wires. They can't be near anything hot. If they're near something hot, make it so they're not, because spark plug wires burning through on turbo cars is one of the biggest causes of problems with running. This side was real easy. Back one just a little extra long, ran down underneath. Middle two stock length, and they don't touch, they don't even come close. That one has a sleeve on it just because vibrations might let it bounce off this thing. Front one stock length. So wires are done, and what else? The hot side's all done.
Yep.
We have a complete turbo hot side finished. Let's get under here and show you guys. The only thing left to mount is the wastegate, but the downpipe is ran through the frame, and our downpipe for this kit ends right here. You can see it'll end right there by this, behind the starter. That's where you'll have to have your exhaust shop, or you will fab it and try to join it back to your stock exhaust, or however you're going to run it. The downpipe, or the dump tube for the wastegate, will just dump right here to atmosphere. Next, we're going to start working on the intercooler system, the intercooler piping, and tidy up a couple of the connections. For example, some wires and some lines that may be anywhere near the exhaust manifolds. We'll put some wrapping just to protect them, just thinking ahead, you know, for future issues. This one here I can fit my hand between, but that's a lot of heat, so I'll probably end up wrapping a little bit of heat wrap around here just to protect it. Anything that you can think of, just use common sense, and you'll be fine. It's, like I said, 98-99% bolt-on kit, very minor changes needed. Went on pretty smooth, didn't it, Cody?
Yep.
It's pretty good. So, how to turbo your Camaro over the weekend. This is day 2, and mostly because we had to wait for some parts. So it'll be done in about 2.5 days. All we gotta do is finish up the intercooler piping yet, and we'll be finished. We'll be able to, well no, we still have to put the intake back on with the injectors and whatnot. We have to put the fuel pump in the tank. We're not doing the fuel pump in the tank here because this lift's not high enough to get the the tank down properly. So we will be putting it together with the stock tank, or stock fuel pump still in, and we'll be taking it to Fast Freddy's garage. And Fast Freddy's going to go ahead and put the fuel pump in for us because he has a full-size lift. Say goodbye.
Bye.
Alright guys, so pick up where we're at. We have the hot side completely fastened down and finished. The only thing that's left is the wastegate to be bolted on, but we're just leaving that out of the way right now. We're going to start on the cold side now. So we'll pick up with showing you how that actually gets finished, how the intercooler gets hung and all the piping gets ran. Just want to give you guys a look how she looks here. We ended up clocking the power steering cooler just a little bit to bring the hoses up and out of the way. We still don't have our alternator relocated and our serpentine belt on yet, so we'll show you how that looks once that's finished. But yeah, we got the feed line ran to the turbo off that block off plate above the filter, and then we did, try not to shake the camera around, but I'm bad at that. And here we got our drain line right there into the side of the oil pan, and that runs up through everything nicely and then onto the bottom of the turbo. Held on there with a clamp. Okay, so we'll pick up with some of the intercooler piping done. Hey guys, so we made a little progress here. Wanted to go ahead and show you how this goes. You're going to get some brackets with the intercooler, and in this case we hardly had to do any fabbing at all. Pretty much only had to dig out of the junk drawer a couple extra nuts and bolts that were missing out of the kit. They must have fell out of the box. The box did have a little hole in it. And so you mount the 2 upper brackets to this here, and the lower ones like this, and that makes her nice and sturdy. She ain't going nowhere. Clock the compressor housing, which you see we had to loosen it up a little bit, like so. Run the pipe out and around and in. All now it's left to do is tighten back down the compressor housing's perimeter bolts, put clamps on all these, And that side of the intercooler is actually finished. But before we go ahead and do that, Cody and I want to try to trial fit the bumper. And once we trial fit the bumper, we'll pick up with showing you guys the next steps. Okay guys, so Cody's out there trimming the bumper. We discovered that the two little vents that are right behind the black inlets on the little grill were definitely touching on the intercooler. So he's out there trimming those away. I wanted to show you something though. Because this kit is actually set up to be for a mass airflow car. It'll come with the two boots here to connect from your throttle body to your mass airflow, and then from your mass airflow down to the piping kit. I'm going speed density with this, so I just went up and dug out of my box a spare boot I had, and this piece will end up getting plumbed in yet down in, and I'm just going to have to fabricate. I'll probably just dig through my piles of spare pipes and just put a little 90 right here with a clamp here and a boot and a clamp here. And I'll show you that when it's picked up. That's the only thing really required to go speed density, except for one more thing. The intake air temperature sensor was here in the air filter box. Let me show you that. Right there's the intake air temperature sensor. It's in a grommet stuck into there. What I'm going to have to do is somewhere on this piping, when it's finished, I will have to drill a hole, put that grommet in, and insert the intake air temperature sensor, and then extend the wires if they're not long enough to reach. I'll probably end up doing it in that little piece I fabricate here. I'm going to wait till I get the relocated alternator to see what kind of space we're dealing with, and I'll do that. That's really all that's required to, if you don't want to do the mass airflow setup like the kit comes equipped for. I don't know why. We don't offer two different versions. I'm not the head of the company as far as that part goes. So, but this is all that's needed to do it. The rest of it's fitting on there good. Everything's looking real nice. Everything fits just like it should, other than the bumper cover needing trimmed, which is the way it goes on any car I've ever discovered. So we'll pick up then with us showing you everything clamped and tightened down and the front bumper cover on. Cody and I have made the final connection on the cold side. Fabricated the piece we discussed that we need. All it was is a small 90 and another coupler, because like I said, this kit was meant for mass airflow. Here we got the grommet and the IAT, intake air temp sensor. I laid the harness back over just to see how short it would be, and as you see, it doesn't reach, so I'll have to end up extending those wires. What you'll want to do with solder and heat shrink, do a nice job of it. I'm going to end up drilling a hole and putting this in somewhere along here, and that'll measure the intake air temperature then for us. Being that this is a grommet style, you're going to want to drill it in such a way that it barely fits, because you want this sucker, when she's locked in, when the grommet's pushed in and then this slides into the grommet, that it really shoves out hard, because you don't want that sucker popping out at 14-15 pounds of boost. To shoot out. So alright, I'm going to do that next. Cody's cutting the bumper. We got the bumper to fit perfect by trimming out those scoops. What we decided, we're going to give it a little different look. We're actually going to cut out the whole front center, so all you see is intercooler glaring down on you when this comes up behind you. We kind of wanted to do the stealth appearance, the stealth look with this car, and we still might. All we would end up doing then would be painting the intercooler black, and that way it also gets a lot more air to the intercooler, which we were kind of concerned with. So he's going to go trim the bumper now, and we will put it on and see how it looks, and we'll decide then if we want to keep the bumper shiny, or the intercooler shiny, or black it out. So, you know, we're trying to keep a little bit of a stealth look going with this project, Cody, and cutting that out takes that away, but the way we had noticed with those two little scoops, the intercooler just ain't getting hardly shit for flow.
Question I'm asking the viewers here too. Have you ever seen a Camaro that just blares intercooler instead of that shitty plastic in the front?
No, I've never seen I've never seen a turbocharged Camaro.
Yeah? I can't say all. Not in person anyway.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, not in person. None around here.
Yep.
Alright, so we're going to pick up next with me fixing the IAT, finishing clamping down some clamps. Cody's going to trim out the bumper. We'll put the bumper on, fasten her down, and snug up some things, and that's about as far as we're going to go for right now. Then we're going to eat some food.
Yeah.
Alright, later. so we're pretty much all wrapped up on the hot side and the cold side of the turbo kit. The exhaust is ran back to around the starter location, and we'll be able to patch it in from there with the full exhaust. As far as the cold side goes, of course, we've converted from mass airflow to speed density, so we put the intake air temperature sensor here and fabbed up a piece of pipe. Got a boot that matches, and got the intake on, no injectors yet, which that's the next step. So right now me and Cody are going to go ahead and wrap up the bumper reinstall. Get as much of the plastics back underneath that we can. I want to show you guys how this all looks. You can see here, can't really zoom back much further. The intercooler is nicely hidden. We still have a nice cavity here, plenty of space up in there to put our fans for the cooling. And this is the wastegate mounted. It's dump tube. Turbo's mounted and fastened down. All the clamps are on in place. We just got to run some vacuum line, tighten down our O2 sensor bungs, since we're not going to be running O2 sensors other than a wideband for tuning. And see, we've got an air filter on it now. There's the air filter. So she's looking really good. Wastegate, blow off valves up here. So when we're all said and done here with a couple more odds and ends with this bumper, we're going to start zip tying back things that need to be zip tied back and fastening things down. And we should then be able to wrap up with the injector install and reinstalling the intake permanently. And that would be about what? Then we're down to the fuel pump. Well, reinstall the tires and some little odds and ends. Just make sure everything's zip tied back.
Yeah.
You want to make sure that none of your lines are in the way. Here's another thing I want to show you guys. When you purchase one of these kits from me, I'll include this nice bracket for relocating the alternator. This bracket's actually made by a very good company called CBR. There's no corners cut on it. It's high quality. It works very well. You can mount your Camaro or truck style alternator with it up on the top. And you can also have the option of going ahead and getting the correct belt for power steering. And if you don't have power steering, we can get you a belt without power steering. So me and Cody are going to wrap up a couple more things, and we'll pick up with where we're at. Alright, boys and girls, I want to show you what you have to do here. It's time to put our intake together. So you basically unbolt your fuel rail, the 4 bolts to hold it down. This one's actually sitting on there backwards. And then we've got to go ahead and take these clips off that are holding the injectors in to the rail. And once the injectors are popped out, you're going to replace them with your Siemens Deca injectors that come with your JS Racing Products kit. And on the LS1, there's no shimming or anything fancy required because they're the same length as the stock ones. They just flow 80 pounds versus the 20 something that the stockers flow. So make sure you get, like when I pulled this one out, the O-ring stuck up inside the rail. Make sure you use a pick tool and get that out. So I'm going to go ahead now and put all these injectors in, get the fuel rail bolted down, and that will give us the opportunity then to go ahead and put the intake on, get all our vacuum lines reconnected, all our sensors rehooked up, and we should be just that much closer to getting ready to fire up this bad boy and testing her out. Alright guys, fuel rail's mounted down. Injectors are in. So we're going to go ahead and get ready to start putting this intake back on the car. What we decided to do in this case, instead of rewiring a harness for like a GM 3-bar like is really common when you go with boost, or even a square style 2-bar, 2.5 bar, we're going to go ahead and use this direct snap-in replacement style. This is actually for a Cobalt, the turbocharged or supercharged Cobalts, and this allows us to not have to modify the harness in any way. It'll plug and play in just like the stock map sensor did in the stock location. And I can include these in the kit when you purchase the kit, or you can just get it yourself online. So that's the next step. I'm going to go ahead and install the map sensor and go ahead and get ready to set the intake back on. Okay, so we're getting ready to hook up also the vacuum lines that go to the back of the intake. There's a little nipple down here that has a connection that goes to it, and it used to use this T-fitting here like this, and then it went around to the EGR back there, which we're not using. So all I've done is simply reconfigured it slightly, got rid of the one-way check valve that was in it for the EGR, and put a Y here. And that Y, something in my mouth, that Y will be what we end up feeding the 2 lines here for the wastegate and blow-off valve. So go ahead and hook that up, and be ready to set the intake on.
Alright, Cody checking in here. I'm just starting to wrap things up, putting some of the finishing touches on everything. Just got the injectors installed and the intake manifold bolted back down, and the starter just bolted that back on as well.
Dipstick tubes back in.
Dipstick tubes back in.
We gotta remember to put oil in it.
Yep. And then
I guess what we'll do next is the wiring harness across the top of the motor, the fuel lines. We still have to extend and tie in the battery charging cable for the back of the alternator. Was easily undone through the loom like you saw earlier and ran right over here. But we do have to run this over to that single wire that used to go to this, you know, to the top of the alternator. So we just extended it here, as you see, and we'll end up running it probably around behind the motor so it looks nice through the loom. And it'll get tied in over there to the stock location. Always make sure that you go around with zip ties and pull any hoses or cables or wires away from any hot exhaust. Reroute things as needed so that nothing touches or gets burned or stuck in the fan belt. You should be able to put your hand, at least your thickness of your hand, between everything. If anything's closer than that, it's iffy. So we've got some more hoses and tubes to connect here, a couple more little lines, throttle cables, the traction control motor, and probably another half hour, 45 minutes of buttoning things up. We'll literally be ready to probably test fire it. So I'll have to go get the laptop, hook the HP tuners up, load a speed density tune alteration onto it for a 2-bar map sensor. Test the cooling fans, make sure they're working. We stuck 2 slim fans in front of the radiator to act as pushers, but we did tie back almost all the plastic back underneath the front. You know that because these Camaros have an air dam and then a tunnel that really lets air just right up through the radiator as you're going down the highway at speed. It really helps keep you not having to use fans. So failure to put that plastic all back in would have really given us cooling issues, and we were able to get almost all that back in. Just a few splash guards on either end where the intercooler piping goes, we didn't bother putting back in. We could have trimmed them to get them back in, but honestly, most people that own these kind of cars, especially the person that buys this from us, it's not going to be beaten in the snow and in the rain, and having those splash guards out ain't going to affect anything. So it's a factory underbody type thing for aerodynamics. So they're just little tiny pieces of plastic at each end, no big deal. All right, Cody, so let's wrap up the harness. Let's wrap up the fuel system back up. Since we got the injectors in, we can plug them in and start running the cables and the hoses, and we'll go get the laptop, check the fans, make sure they're working, button it all down, and I bet you the next video we shoot for these guys will be us test firing this. All right, so we got everything hooked up. Our battery was dead, but we got her charging here. We have the booster pack on it, and we went ahead and put the tune on it. 80-pound injectors, 2-bar speed density tune. Pretty much just used a base map that I've already worked on before, so it'll be a good starting point for us. Now we're going to hop in here and see if she fires up. We don't have a full exhaust on it right now. It dumps right down by the starter. We still didn't do the aftermarket or the replacement fuel pump yet. That's going down to Fast Freddy's. So for now we're letting the exhaust off so he can get the tank down easy. Once the fuel pump's done, we will put the full exhaust back on it. But it should sound pretty good. Let's give it a fire up here and see how she does. Cross your fingers. Firing right up, running. I hear a vacuum leak. Alright guys, so we're finishing up the how to turbo your Camaro over the weekend, and the last step is putting in the fuel pump. Now we did have it arranged, like we told you, to take it down to Fast Freddy, but for some reason that's not going to happen now, and we decided to do it on our own without dropping the tank. And there's videos out there on the internet on how to do that, but we're going to show you how to do it. Basically what you have to do is take out some of this plastic, and just so you can get this carpet up, this one piece of carpet right here. 2 Torx here holding down these tie downs, and the carpet will flip up, and then we'll show you where you mark out on the metal down there. Carefully slice it 3 sides so you can flip it up like a hatch, and we're going to pull the fuel pump right up out, and then we'll swap the fuel pump for the Walgirl 400, and then we'll put it back together, flip down the hatch, and we'll seal the cut. We'll make the cut as thin as we can using a real thin cutoff wheel, and it should seal up nicely. So next step will be picking up, showing you guys how to mark off for the hole.
Alright, now what we came up with, the easiest way to get to your fuel pump is get a straight edge, something to make your lines nice and straight. And then right up here where those tie downs were bolted in, is going to be your first guideline where you're going to flip it back. So you want to just mark that down, and then your second line, the rest of your lines are going to be right here in these grooves, right at the top of them. You're going to come all the way down to about here. It's really hard to see our markings, but you come all the way down here, and then you just come right across here and then back, and then right about here the fuel lines are going to be right about here, and they're going to come out this way. So you got to be very careful not to go too deep and cut those lines.
You want to barely go through.
Barely go through. You want to just so we get through the metal is all you want to go. You don't really want to go any deeper than that.
Yup. Let's get to cutting.
Get in there.
Nice and deep right there, next pile. Fast. Cut through enough of it.
Oh yeah. There she is. Popped up, and there's the fuel pump. So now we'll get the vacuum cleaner and we'll suck up a lot of that dirt and dust, that when we pop this apart it doesn't fall down in. And then there's this trim ring here we're about to turn. Now let's lift out all of it. But we also have to undo these high pressure lines. And these are, now let's see here, these go like that and pop off just like that. So there's one popped off, and this one here you actually, it's a little different style. This one here you actually have to squeeze like so, and it'll pop off. This is another one that you click in like that, and it'll pop right off. So there's that one off, that one off, and alright, so now you unhook these lines. Let's see here, I need a pick tool or a screwdriver, guys.
There's a flathead right here.
There's a flathead right here. Put that down in there. There we go, that's out. So let us now push down on that and slide him right off. So those just kind of get tucked here out of the way. And we still got to get this one line off here, which is a little bit trickier than the rest, because you got to squish. You got to squish it into a perfect circle. So you just got to push here. There's a push right underneath where you have to have little tiny fingers to get to. It ain't as easy to get to as these quickie lock ones. So here we go, got her off. And now we take off the trim ring, which will usually just be a matter of taking the hammer and hitting the screwdriver right here and spinning it around. So I'll get the hammer, and then we'll
What if it goes the other way?
Well, it can't because
I guess it goes. Do it.
are you recording me fucking up, getting this off?
Yeah. I figured you'd like it for the bloopers.
It's just in there tight. That's all. This is like
Probably hasn't been taken out before.
this is tight as Cody's sister. Fuck.
It's only 13 years old.
Yeah, I guess his sister's a little older than that. Oh my god.
She's older than I am. Not by much.
Well, it's moving.
It is moving, yeah. It is. Move that.
I guess you can't really use lube.
Yeah, it's just a matter of moving it around into a couple different spots until. Oof. And then you don't. That's not a towel.
I didn't know if it...
When I want gas on something that's catching sparks.
Yeah.
So
Not
you
fun
you got a sensor here for the gas tank level that you got to kind of finagle out, and then the sock and the fuel. Okay. Give me a shop rag, Cody. Cody-san. Yeah.
Doesn't matter
upside
if
down.
it's...
Just bring me a shop rag. I just don't want to be bending over here smelling gas fumes. Alright, let's go over here where we can work. Alright, so basically this sock mechanism here just popped right off the bottom. Looks like it seals some O-rings. 2 tabs here that you slide the basket apart. Looks like we also have a plug here for the fuel sending unit that we're going to have to undo. So we take the safety lock off, and then that'll let us unplug it. Like that. And then we should be able to remove the basket. Alright. And here's what we're after. This guy. We want to exchange him. So it looks like he's held on, this wire's held on with 2 clips. Pop them off. There we go. And now we can separate that. So this fuel pump here has its own little socket. And it's connected here with this rubbery line. Looks like it may even float with the gas level or something in here. Kind of a neat setup. I've never had one of these apart. So next thing we have to do is pop off this hose. And it appears to be on there pretty good. So we'll pick up the video instead of wasting a lot of footage here. We'll pick up the video with how we got this off and the steps on putting it back together. Alright, so we got it apart. That was kind of a bitch getting that hose off. I ended up taking a 90-degree pick tool, kind of going in around it to release it. What we found is this is a universal wall burl 400 setup here. It uses different plugs and slightly different setup than the OEM one did. So what we're going to do is we went ahead and stuck the OEM's rubber boot on the top, so that can go back in like that. And we're going to stick this back on there, and we'll use a clamp to hold it in place, just to make sure it don't leak. But what we have to do is convert the plug to the new style. So basically I just went ahead and disassembled this. It has this little safety pin in here to keep them from coming out. You pull that out, and then using a pick tool, you can go down inside here and release the plugs and pull them out. And I'm just going to go ahead and cut them off right there. And then I'm going to crimp on these ends. This came with this already, but it's not for this particular car. It's kind of like a universal wall burl kit. So we're going to have to make it so that the positive and the negative get in the right spot. These are pretty easy to tell. The gray is the positive. It was on the side of the pump with the plus mark here, which is positive. So we know that on this pump here, the large terminal is positive, which is the red one. So we'll just go ahead and splice those together. Make the connections good. This is going to be in a gas tank. You don't want arcing and sparking. You want good connection and good, solid, reliable connections. So we're going to go ahead and do that and start reassembling it. We'll pick up with that. Alright, so to put this fuel pump in, you can't use this sock in the tank because it's not meant to bend and it won't let it fit in. So you have to reuse your stock one over because it's got the angle on it. However, this has tabs that stick off and it's the wrong size. So you need to drill it carefully with a 7/16 bit and a drill. I stuck a piece of plastic down inside there, like some paper plastic bag, balled it up, shoved it way down in, drilled it, knocked the shavings out, and then pulled the plastic bag out, and I kept any shavings from getting in there. And I trimmed off all those ears. And now that will very nicely push right on here, very, very snugly. And it's on there good, it ain't coming off. And that'll tuck up nice right against the side like that, and let you put this back down in the tank, in the basket. We'll pick up with what to do next. Alright, so we got the fuel pump back in, and we put a hose clamp on here to hold that on. We actually have the hose clamp sitting on top of this plastic so that can't fall back down out. We used, like I showed you a second ago, how to stick the stock boot back on. And there will be this style is a little different than everything we saw on the internet. This one actually has a spring that goes in to the one side of the leg down there. Then you just basically assemble it, clicking it back together, like that. All done. We went ahead and hooked the spade connectors up for the fuel pump. And let's see, they are going to get plugged in. Where did this end up going? Right into here. Right at the bottom. Goes right back in. So this piece here. Maybe a little tricky. Like that. And then we simply connect these two wires onto our fuel pump. And we go ahead and reassemble. And we'll pick up with that. So here we have it reassembled. Wires plugged back in and extended down to the new fuel pump. New fuel pump connected to the original line here. We reused the old sock because this being a universal Walbro 400 kit, this would not quite fit into the Camaro's basket. So it's okay to use the stock one over. It's a double sock system anyway. This sock here pretty much gets all the big stuff and lets the fuel fill up this little reservoir, and then the other one's just kind of a secondary sock. So now we're going to go ahead and put this back in the gas tank and reconnect everything the opposite of what we took it apart, and then we'll be able to fire it up and test it. Filming me, Josie?
Yep.
I figured you would. People like to watch me struggle. Alright, so just the opposite of the way we took it out. Make sure that rubber seal is nice and flat in there. Make sure the fuel pump's nice and flat. And then you turn this back and get her engaged. Looks like we're missing a spot right here. Maybe a little tricky. There we go. There we go. So now we just take our screwdriver, kind of the straight edge please, Cody.
Where's that?
Back on the table where we had it. And we go ahead and tap these back around the opposite way. Like this. And once you have it turned all the way back around and locked the way it goes, reconnect the wires and the fuel lines, and then we'll show you how to seal up the hatch. Alright, so we have the wires back connected, the lines back on. We still have to pound this trim ring back around a little bit more. That holds everything in. But At this point, you'll have somebody cycle the key, and you hear the pump run, so you know it's working. All right, so we're going to tighten that down. We'll pick up with showing you how to seal the hatch right there. So we want to try to get that sitting back flush as we can. Get rid of our little bends. There we go. All right, so now that you have that back down, you gotta fasten it. That says we didn't come up with a way yet. Josie's recording. We gotta wing it. I don't know how we're gonna fasten it.
You know, little fucking lost it now.
So I put a little quickie weld at a couple spots. Like that. You don't have to do the whole thing. We'll actually end up sealing it with tape then. This just holds it back shut. There we go. All right, so you seal it up with some sealer here. And then we'll use like some Gorilla tape to go around and actually make it airtight then. I don't want to make it impossible for the next guy to get in.
You could take some off my bumper.
Yeah. Subaru problems. Let that stuff set up. Once that sets up, go ahead and seal it the rest of the way with some Gorilla tape and we'll be done.
All right, let's fire her up, see if it works.
The last step in how to turbo your Camaro over the weekend is going to be installing your exhaust however you want it. And this will be up to you. Like we showed you, our kit ends up giving you a downpipe that ends right up in here by the starter. And what we've decided to do is put the Flowmaster cat pipe system, cat back system kind of had on it back on the car. And we're going to end up getting some custom pipe bent and run it down the center here and tied into the downpipe so that the turbo system will be a single exit like it normally is, but it'll go into the old dual exhaust Flowmaster. That should give it a nice stealthy sound, give old Black Hawk the element of surprise. So I guess the last thing to pick up with, because this video is pretty much concluded, would be showing you guys it running. But for now I just want to say pretty simple job to do overall. This is something that if you have all the components on hand can be done over a weekend really easily. Everything came in the kit that we needed. The fuel pump, the injectors, pretty much everything. This kit does not include valve springs. I can include valve springs in the kit if you want, but the LS1 valve springs are not as bad as the truck springs, so I don't include them unless you ask for it. And we're not really running a lot of boost in this setup. With the high compression this motor has, we'll probably only end up running around 10 psi. It's currently only at 6. We were already out maxing the stock fuel pump when we took it out and street tuned it. Couldn't rev her past for like 4,500 RPM without running out of fuel. So that's it, guys. How to turbo your Camaro over the weekend. JS Racing Products F-Body Turbo Kit installed like a dream. So this car is actually going to be sold over on our other channel, CNC Customs, This is Project Blackhawk, and if you don't know what I'm talking about, look for my second channel, CNC Customs, and watch some of our episodes. We currently have one episode up, and we're going to be releasing a second one soon. And we have some minor tidbits over there, some funny stuff, and some informational stuff. But this car will be sold here, being put up for sale within the next few weeks, and make somebody a heck of a nice vehicle. Okay guys, last video of the how to turbo your Camaro over the weekend. Here's the homemade downpipe we made. This is where the kit ends. We fabricated this piece here, runs back, that ties right here into what would have been the original Flowmaster 3-inch. That's the Flowmaster 3-inch the rest of the way back. And from back there, Josie, you can turn it and show you the whole thing. What we made here. So, this is the downpipe that we fabbed. Alright, so now we're just going to cut off these here. They're a little long. And we're calling it quits, and we're going to go tune the thing.